It's time for the Michael Huddleston Show on HUDRadio.com.
I appreciate your input.
832-699-0110. That is the number to the studio. You can also look us up on Facebook at www.facebook.com/mhudradio. All right, well, we're back after a 2-week hiatus, and I'll tell you what, technology was developed to help us do better things, and so far in the history of this show, it has hindered us twice. And so the solution this time was to not try to fix the problem for the short term, but to fix it for the long term. So we scrapped everything, got a brand new computer, and started over. And thanks to the Acer company for providing us with that technology, because it is something wonderful. So off the bat right now, I want to start out by gloating a little bit and say that I predicted that the Ted Cruz race would be Ted Cruz victory, and it is. He beats David Dewhurst by almost 13 percentage points, so just absolutely smashes the lieutenant governor in the runoff election for the vacant Kay Bailey Hutchinson seat. So I'm 1 for 1 so far on predictions with this show, with one of those outstanding, and that is that Mitt Romney will win the general election in November and become the next president of the United States. So the verdict is still out on that, but so far 1 for 1. Really cool story that I wanted to share with you guys. This comes off of a Facebook post by the U.S. Marines. This is a little bit old. This was posted back January 27th, but it just comes across my Facebook wall. I wanted to share it with you because it's really interesting, and it will kind of tie into what we're talking about today. But it says, the night before the burial of her husband, 2nd Lieutenant James Cathy of the United States Marine Corps, was killed in Iraq. Catherine Cathy refused to leave the casket, asking to sleep next to his body for the last time. The Marines made a bed for her, tucked in the sheets below the flag. Before she fell asleep, she opened her laptop computer and played the song that reminded her of Cat. And one of the Marines asked if she wanted them to continue standing and protect her through the night. She said, "I think it would be kind of nice if you kept doing it," she said. "I think that's what he would have wanted. That's what he would have done." And then the caption at the bottom says, "Not sure what is more honorable, being married to this faithful wife or to the end, or the Marine standing next to the casket watching over both of them." So this ties in, and as you think about that a little bit and process that, it goes into what we're going to talk about today, and that is how great this country is and how much it's not being recognized. Now, again, breaking one of the cardinal rules when it comes to radio, and that is playing long clips. But there was a speech that Ronald Reagan gave on his last night in office, and it applies today more than it did back in 1988. And so I want to play you just a real quick excerpt. It's going to be about 3 minutes and 7 seconds long, but I want you to listen to it, I want you to process it, and then we'll talk about it.
This national feeling is good, but it won't count for much, and it won't last unless it's grounded in thoughtfulness and knowledge. An informed patriotism is what we want. And are we doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents in the long history of the world? Those of us who are over 35 or so years of age grew up in a different America. We were taught very directly what it means to be an American. And we absorbed almost in the air a love of country and an appreciation of its institutions. If you didn't get these things from your family, you got them from the neighborhood, from the father down the street who fought in Korea, or the family who lost someone at Anzio. Or you could get a sense of patriotism from school. And if all else failed, you could get a sense of patriotism from the popular culture. The movies celebrated democratic values and implicitly reinforced the idea that America was special. TV was like that, too, through the mid-60s. But now we're about to enter the 90s, and some things have changed. Younger parents aren't sure that an unambivalent appreciation of America is the right thing to teach modern children. And as for those who create the popular culture, well-grounded patriotism is no longer the style. Our spirit is back, but we haven't re-institutionalized it. We've got to do a better job of getting across that America is freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of enterprise, And freedom is special and rare. It's fragile. It needs production. So we've got to teach history based not on what's in fashion, but what's important. Why the Pilgrims came here, who Jimmy Doolittle was, and what those 30 seconds over Tokyo meant. You know, 4 years ago, on the 40th anniversary of D-Day, I read a letter from a young woman writing to her late father, who had fought on Omaha Beach. Her name was Lisa Zanata Hen, and she said, "We will always remember. We will never forget what the boys of Normandy did." Well, let's help her keep her word. If we forget what we did, we won't know who we are. I'm warning of an eradication of the American memory that could result ultimately in an erosion of the American spirit. Let's start with some basics. More attention to American history and a greater emphasis on civic ritual. And let me offer lesson number 1 about America. All great change in America begins at the dinner table. So tonight in the kitchen, I hope the talking begins. And children, if your parents hadn't been teaching you what it means to be an American, let them know and nail them on it. That would be a very American thing to do.
That speech applies today just as much as it did in 1988. In 1988, the fear was that the 1990s were going to come and there was going to be a total collapse of freedom and patriotism, in which in some ways there was. The idea that we have become a stronger nation since the 1990s is a total farce. President Kennedy stood up during his inaugural speech and said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." And then the part that people don't hear is he says, "And citizens of the world, ask not what the United States can do for you, ask what us as a people can do to help better human rights and human freedom." We don't grow up in an age like that anymore. Everything that we hear about is me, 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 mine, 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 is continually being projected on our youth of America coming from the liberal left administration. There have not been one plan to help better freedom in America. If anything, everything's being taken away from us. But it's being taken away from us because us as Americans aren't as smart as we used to be. I had this conversation with my father a couple days ago. It was, are us as Americans incredibly smart and we're just doing whatever it takes to survive and get what we want to survive, or have we just become really that stupid? And I've gone either way on this subject before. You can't convince me that everybody in this country is just that stupid that we don't get and we don't see what's going on. Because you've got people like Jesse Jackson, Sheila Jackson Lee, Al Sharpton. You've got people like Maxine Waters, and you've got all these crazy idiots from Westboro Baptist and the Gay and Lesbian Action Committee, or whatever their title is, that do everything they can to gain more. Every action that they take has a meaning behind it that is gain more money, gain more power, gain more fame. There are massive shootings that happen all over this country, in Los Angeles, New York, Dallas, Houston, Miami, Boston, Chicago, wherever, that's black on black violence. And you don't see Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, or any of those guys running out here to demand justice like they did with the Trayvon Martin case. No. The only time you see those two guys crawl out of their holes is when they want some more money, when they want more fame, or when the spotlight's been taken off them and some people have forgotten about them. Because in this country, the name of the game is attain. And attain as much as I can by any means possible, and don't even worry about who you have to step on or who you have to abuse to get it. Just attain. Attain in every form and fashion. That's even become the poison that's poisoned our churches. There are plenty of Baptist churches out there. Not just Baptist churches, Christian churches, Methodists, Catholics. our churches that we hold so dear have become poisoned in the same way. There's a Baptist church here in Bryan College Station that is completely, utterly fallen apart. And the whole problem has been the fact that they got greedy. And there was seclusion. And we don't want this group, and we don't want this group, and we want the power here. And if we let these people become leaders in the church, then we're going to lose what we want here. And that is in every stinking church in America. So, as Americans, what we have to do is we have to take Ronald Reagan's advice. We have to start talking about politics. No more this political correctness crap that goes on every day. Start talking to your kids about politics. Start talking to them when they're in junior high about the issues of today. Let's not listen to anybody else tell us we can't talk about politics because that's a private issue, or I don't want to talk about politics because it just turns into an argument. Great if it turns into an argument. That's what this country is all about, is arguing and debating the issues of today to making ourselves better. Ronald Reagan was a visionary, and not just a visionary for the 80s. He was a visionary because he saw what's happening now. He saw it back in the 80s. And he said we have to prepare ourselves now to deal with those issues that were going to come in the 2000s and 2010s. So, as Americans, what do we need to do today? We need to start educating ourselves better. We need to start getting on CNN, and not just stopping at CNN, but moving over to Fox News and reading articles from other people. And like Reagan said again, we need to start learning about our history, because history repeats itself. It does time after time after time after time after time after time after time again. History is what killed the Roman civilization. It's what killed the Mayans. It's what killed the British Empire. It's what killed every great civilization. It was killed because they repeated themselves in history. Go look it up. I promise you. In America, we're doing the same things that we got mad and pissed off about 275 years ago when we were in England. And then we came over here because we got tired of it. And then 275 years later, we're doing the same things. And we don't realize it because we don't care enough to realize it. Americans are not stupid, despite what Barack Obama thinks that they are. Americans are intelligent. But we allow people of higher authority to make sure that we're not intelligent, to tell us that we don't need to think for ourselves. When as Americans, that's what we founded ourselves on. The ability to think, the ability to strive, the ability to achieve. Not listen to somebody else when they tell us we can't do something. And yet look what we're at today. So that's the challenge for everybody listening to this radio show. Take your kids tonight, ask them, what do you think about gay marriage? What do you think about when somebody tells you that you can't do something? And then start asking your kids detailed questions. What do you want to be when you grow up? And listen to them. And if it sounds totally crazy and stupid, don't ignore it. Don't make fun of it, and don't say, oh, well, realistically, what do you want to do? If that child says, I want to be an astronaut and go to Mars, support everything that kid does. Support that vision. Say, all right, you want to be an astronaut and go to Mars? Let's work hard at it. Let's get good in math and science. And then let's work on, and as they get older, well, hey, you said when you were 8, you wanted to be an astronaut and go to Mars. Do you still want to do that? I mean, come on, let's get our math and science scores up. Let's do what you said you wanted to do. Because that's what America is. And all these crackheads that are up in Washington are the King Georges back in England. Well, that's all the time we got for today, but I really want to hear your thoughts, your comments, your concerns on this topic. I think it's something we can really get into. So once again, the phone number is 832-699-0110. I don't have to be talking for you to call that number. Call that number, leave a message, we'll play it on the air. Or you can leave your comments on our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/mhudradio. So stay tuned, and we will see you next time.